The morning was calm. The sun rose high over the tall glass building in the city's rich business district. Expensive cars lined the street. Business people walked in and out, dressed in clean suits and shiny shoes. Inside the lobby of Winston & Lee, a well-known corporate office, everything looked perfect. White floors, tall green plants, a large glass desk at the center. Behind it sat Karen, the front desk manager. She wore a sharp suit, red lipstick, and an expression that could turn warm or cold in a second. She liked her job. She liked being in control. At 9:05 a.m., the glass doors opened again. A tall, older black man walked in. He wore a clean black jacket, dark jeans, and leather shoes. His hair was gray, neatly cut. His face calm and confident. But he didn't wear a business suit. He didn't carry a laptop or a fancy bag. Karen looked up and frowned. The man walked over to the front desk and smiled kindly. "Good morning. I have a meeting upstairs." Karen didn't smile back. "With who?" she asked, her tone flat. "Mr. Lee," the man replied. Karen crossed her arms. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," he said, still calm. Karen looked him up and down. Her eyes narrowed. "You must be lost," she said. "This office is for corporate clients only. Deliveries go to the back." "I'm not making a delivery," the man replied. "Then who are you?" she snapped. "Because from the way you're dressed, you don't belong here." The lobby grew quiet. Two interns nearby stopped talking. A woman waiting on the sofa looked over. Even the security guard at the side entrance raised his head. "I'm Mr. Ellis," the man said gently. "And I do have a meeting here." Karen laughed, a short, cold laugh. "With Mr. Lee, our CEO. Please, that's not possible." She picked up the phone. "I'll call security now." Before Mr. Ellis could speak again, two security guards walked in from the side. Karen pointed. "This man is causing a disturbance. Please escort him out." The guards walked toward Mr. Ellis. One said, "Sir, we'll need you to leave the building." Mr. Ellis didn't argue. He didn't yell. He simply looked at all of them with sad eyes. "I understand," he said quietly. He turned around and walked out through the same glass doors. The building fell silent again. Karen sat tall in her chair, proud of herself. "Some people really think they can walk in anywhere," she muttered. The woman on the sofa shook her head slowly. The two interns whispered, and the security guard at the door kept watching. Outside, Mr. Ellis walked to his black car parked just down the road. The driver opened the door for him. "Should we still go inside, sir?" the driver asked. Mr. Ellis smiled slightly and looked back at the glass building. "Not yet," he said. "Let's give them a little more time." He pulled out his phone and made one short call. His voice was calm but firm. "This is Ellis. Cancel every pending contract with Winston & Lee. Today." Then he sat back in the car, watching the people inside who had just told him he didn't belong. They didn't know it yet, but their entire world was about to change. The office building looked the same the next morning. Clean floors, quiet halls, and workers busy with their usual tasks. But something felt different. Karen sat at her desk as always, smiling at a few people she liked and ignoring others. She had already forgotten about the black man from yesterday. To her, he was just another person trying to walk in without permission. But things were about to change. At 10:00 a.m., the office manager, Mr. Burns, rushed into the lobby. He looked stressed, holding his phone and checking emails again and again. "Karen," he said, his voice sharp, "did you see a man here yesterday morning? A black gentleman in his 60s, gray hair, black jacket." Karen frowned. "Yes, I did. He came in asking for Mr. Lee. I told him to leave. He didn't belong here." Mr. Burns's face turned pale. "You what?" he asked. "I told him he must be lost," Karen said, still proud. "I even called security." "Why?" Mr. Burns looked like he had just seen a ghost. He held up his phone and showed her a photo. It was the same man from yesterday. That, Mr. Burns said, is Mr. James Ellis. He is the silent owner of this entire company. Not just this office. He owns the whole parent company. Karen's mouth fell open. That can't be. He didn't look like. Like what? Mr. Burns interrupted. Like someone rich. Like someone powerful. Karen didn't answer. Mr. Burns ran a hand through his hair. He was testing us. He wanted to see how we treat people. And now we're in serious trouble. Just then, his phone buzzed again. He read the message and sat down in shock. All contracts are canceled, he whispered. Our biggest deals. All gone. Ellis shut them down himself. Karen felt the blood leave her face. All canceled. Mr. Burns nodded slowly. That man came here with respect, and we treated him like garbage. Across the office, emails started coming in. Projects were paused. Meetings were stopped. Phones rang nonstop. Managers shouted. People panicked. Something was happening, and no one could fix it. Then another message came in. A short email from Mr. Ellis himself. Subject: a lesson in respect. To the staff of Winston & Lee. Yesterday, I walked into your building to see how you treat people who don't wear suits, who don't look rich. I was told I didn't belong. Today, I remind you that respect is not about clothes or skin color. It is about how we treat each other. Until further notice, all contracts are frozen. James Ellis, CEO, Ellis Group Holdings. The email spread fast. Every single person in the building read it. Some gasped. Others stared at their screens in silence. Karen slowly stood up. She couldn't speak. Mr. Burns turned to her. You're going to have to answer for this. She felt her legs shake. But that wasn't the end. At exactly 11 o'clock a.m., the glass doors opened again. Mr. Ellis walked back in. This time, no one said a word. He wore the same black jacket, the same calm look on his face. But now, everyone knew who he was. The same security guard from yesterday quickly stepped aside. Staff moved out of the way. Even Karen couldn't lift her head. Mr. Ellis walked slowly to the front desk. He looked at Karen. She avoided his eyes. He didn't yell. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Now I belong." Karen's lips trembled. I didn't know who you were." "You shouldn't have to know who someone is," Mr. Ellis replied. "To treat them with basic respect." Silence filled the room. Mr. Burns stepped forward. "Mr. Ellis, we're sorry. Truly, we didn't know." Mr. Ellis turned to him. "Your team failed, but this is not about me. This is about how you treat people every day. Not just the ones in suits. Everyone." Mr. Burns nodded slowly. "I came here to give this office one more chance," Mr. Ellis said. "But now, I'm not so sure." And with that, he walked away again, leaving behind a room full of quiet shame. The building felt colder now. It wasn't the air conditioning. It was the silence, the tension, the weight of what had happened. After Mr. Ellis left the second time, no one went back to work as normal. Emails slowed. Conversations stopped. People sat at their desks, confused, embarrassed, and scared. Karen had not moved from her chair since the moment he walked away. Her hands shook slightly. Her thoughts raced. "I didn't mean to," she whispered to herself. But the truth was, she had meant to judge him. Just because he didn't look like the people who usually came in. Just because she thought he wasn't important. Now she was the one who felt small. In the meeting room upstairs, Mr. Burns gathered the leadership team. His face was pale. His tie was loose. Papers were scattered across the table. "We've lost 3 major contracts in 24 hours, he said. "That's over 20 million in deals. Gone. Ellis canceled them all." A young manager asked, "Is he really going to shut the entire company down?" Mr. Burns sighed. "I don't know. He hasn't said anything else since that email." But if we don't fix this fast, we're finished. Another person asked, "Why didn't anyone stop Karen?" Mr. Burns looked up. "That's the point. No one did. We all saw how she treated him. And we stayed quiet." The room went quiet. Downstairs, Karen was still trying to work, but her screen was blurry from tears. She tried to answer calls but couldn't speak clearly. She felt everyone looking at her, like she was the reason the company might fall. And maybe she was. Later that afternoon, an unexpected message arrived. It was short, simple, and from Mr. Ellis himself. Subject: Final meeting. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. I will return for one final visit. Everyone will be there. J. Panic spread through the office again. What would he say? Would he fire people? Would he sell the company? Would he shut it all down? Some employees packed their desks early, afraid this was the end. Others talked about looking for new jobs. And Karen, she sat alone, replaying every second of what she had done. That night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: regret. She thought about the way Mr. Ellis had looked at her, not with anger, but with disappointment, like a teacher who expected better. In the morning, the staff arrived early. The lobby was full. No one was late. At 9 o'clock a.m. sharp, the glass doors opened. Mr. Ellis stepped inside. This time, people stood up. Some nodded in respect. Others looked down, ashamed. Mr. Ellis walked calmly to the center of the room. He looked around. Then he spoke. "I came here 2 days ago to see the face of this company." He paused. "What I saw was not just one rude person. I saw silence. I saw people watching and doing nothing." No one spoke. Mr. Ellis continued, "This building is filled with talent. I've read your reports. I've seen your numbers. You're smart. You're fast. But if you don't treat people with basic kindness, none of that matters." His voice stayed calm, but his words were sharp. "Some of you only show respect to money, to suits, to power. But real strength is how you treat those who can give you nothing." Karen's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Ellis looked directly at her. "You were the loudest voice," he said, "but others stood by and watched. That's why this is not just about one person." He walked closer to the middle of the crowd. "I'm giving you one last chance, not because you deserve it, but because I believe people can change." Everyone looked surprised. "You have 1 week to prove it. I will watch. I will listen. And if I see real change, this company will survive. But if I see more of what I saw 2 days ago," he paused, "it will all be over." He turned and began walking out. As he passed Karen, she stood and whispered, "I'm sorry." Mr. Ellis looked at her. "Don't say it to me. Say it to the next person who walks through those doors." Then he left. The staff stood in silence, hearts heavy but filled with hope. The next week was the hardest anyone at Winston & Lee had ever experienced. It was a week of change, real change, and it wasn't easy. People tried, but changing habits, especially bad ones, takes time. The staff was nervous. The CEO, Mr. Ellis, had given them 1 week to show they could be better. Could they do it? Or would they fail and lose everything? Karen felt it the most. The shame of her mistake had stayed with her. She couldn't forget the look in Mr. Ellis's eyes when he walked out of the building. The disappointment was worse than any anger. She had never wanted to let anyone down, especially someone who had the power to destroy everything she had worked for. She woke up early every day, thinking about what she could do to fix it. She started with small things, saying good morning to everyone at the office, holding the door for people and smiling. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Down the hall, Mr. Burns and the leadership team began meeting every day to discuss how they could turn things around. They made plans to call clients and apologize, even though some of them didn't understand what had happened. Some clients had already canceled meetings. Others were holding back on signing contracts. But the hardest part was what Mr. Ellis had said. Respect is not about clothes or suits or power. It's about how you treat people who have nothing to offer you. Every employee had to look in the mirror and ask themselves, do I treat others with respect? Really? It wasn't easy for everyone. In the break room, two workers, Sam and Lily, sat quietly during lunch. They had been the ones laughing and whispering about the man who had been thrown out just days ago. You think we'll still have jobs? Sam asked, his voice soft. Lily looked down at her sandwich. I don't know. It's hard to change what we've always done. Sam nodded. It's not just Karen. We all watched and did nothing. The guilt in the room was thick. Over the next few days, Karen took the first step to apologize. She visited every department, from accounting to marketing, and asked for forgiveness. She told everyone she had been wrong, and she made a promise to be better. At first, many of the employees didn't know how to respond. Some were too busy to talk. Others just nodded. But by the end of the week, things started to change. Slowly, people began to open up to each other. Small conversations started. Smiles began to show up in places where there had only been frowns before. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. On the 5th day of the week, Mr. Burns gathered the team again. We've been making progress, but we have one more test, tomorrow. Mr. Ellis is coming back. The entire room froze. Tomorrow, the moment they'd all been waiting for, hoping for, was finally here. We need to be ready, Mr. Burns said. This is it. Everything we've worked for will either make us or break us. The pressure was high. Karen could barely breathe. When the next day arrived, the office was unusually quiet. The staff knew what was at stake. Every person worked harder than ever before. They focused. They tried to show Mr. Ellis they could change, that they were serious about the second chance he had given them. At exactly 9:00 a.m., Mr. Ellis arrived. This time, he didn't just walk through the door. He stood in the lobby, looking around. Everyone knew he was watching. Everyone was nervous. He took a deep breath, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He nodded at a few people who smiled at him. Then he turned and walked to the center of the room, where the staff was gathered. No one said a word. Mr. Ellis looked at Karen first. She stood a little straighter than before, her hands no longer shaking. He gave her a slight nod, which made her feel a little lighter. Then he addressed the entire group. I've seen change, he began. I see more respect, more effort, but change takes time. It's not about 1 week. It's about every day, every choice you make. He paused and scanned the room. You're not perfect. None of us are. But I can see that you are trying. And that's what matters. Karen's heart raced. Was he going to say it was enough? Would they be saved? Or was it too late? Mr. Ellis continued. You've made a step in the right direction, but now it's up to you. The challenge is not over. You've earned a second chance, but that doesn't mean I'll stop watching. Change must happen every day. A few people looked relieved. Others looked worried. But Karen felt like a weight had been lifted. She didn't know if they had won yet, but they had earned another chance. Prove me right, Mr. Ellis said quietly. Make this company something I can be proud of. Because if I come back and find things haven't changed. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The message was clear. With that, he turned and walked out. The office was quiet, too quiet. Karen sat at her desk, her fingers tapping nervously against her keyboard. She had been there all morning, trying to focus on the work in front of her. But the thought of what was coming was too much to ignore. Today was the day. Mr. Ellis had given them one last chance. He had told them to prove themselves, to show that they had really changed. And now, just days later, they were waiting to hear if it had been enough. Karen wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. Around the office, people were on edge. They had worked hard these past few days, trying to change. But was it enough? Would Mr. Ellis see the difference? It was almost noon when the email came. It was short. Subject: meeting at 2:00 p.m. Please be in the main conference room at 2:00 p.m. Mr. Ellis will be there. J. Burns, CEO. The room was filled with tension. There was no time to relax, no time to breathe. The meeting would determine the future of the company, the future of everyone in the room. Karen stood and walked to the conference room with the others, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt her palms sweating. She wasn't sure if she was ready for whatever Mr. Ellis would say. But there was no going back now. At exactly 2:00 p.m., Mr. Ellis walked into the room. Everyone stood up. It was a sign of respect. But it wasn't just about respect anymore. It was about survival. Survival of the company. Survival of their jobs. Survival of the changes they had made. Mr. Ellis didn't smile. He didn't need to. His serious expression said everything. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady and calm. "I spent the last few days observing, reading reports, and speaking with clients. I've been watching you. And I'm here to tell you what I've seen." Karen's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't focus on anything else. She had never been so nervous in her life. "I see real effort," Mr. Ellis continued. "I see people trying to be better, trying to be kind. But it's not enough yet. Change doesn't happen in a few days. It doesn't happen in a week." There was a silence in the room, thick with anticipation. "However," he said, "I believe you can do it. I believe you can be better. I believe in second chances, but second chances are not endless. You have one more chance." Everyone held their breath. "You will continue to improve. I will continue to watch. And in 6 months, we will meet again." Mr. Ellis looked around the room, his gaze landing on Karen. "If you haven't made real progress by then," he said slowly, "I will walk away. And this company will go down with you." The room was completely still. Karen felt her heart skip a beat. 6 months. That was the deadline. But as he looked at her, she saw something different in his eyes. Not disappointment, not anger, but hope. "You've made a start," he said quietly, "but it's up to you now to finish what you've started." He turned to leave, and the door closed behind him with a soft click. The room was silent for a moment longer. Then the tension broke. People began to talk. They began to smile. Karen felt something stir inside her. Relief. Hope. Maybe they had a chance after all. She looked around the room at her coworkers. They had come a long way, and they still had a long way to go. But today, they had been given a chance to prove themselves. A real chance. As she walked back to her desk, she took a deep breath. This wasn't over yet, but it could be the beginning of something new. For the first time in a long time, Karen believed in the company again. She believed they could turn things around. And this time, she was going to do everything she could to make sure they did.